Hello everyone. My name is Raven. Welcome to Tea with Honey. Today I have a special guest. His name is Kyle. Hi, Kyle.
How's it going?
Pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm sure the episode sounds a bit different because for the first time you have someone in person, right?
Yeah, this is the first ever episode where my guest is in the same room as me and we're using the same microphone. Usually it's like over Zoom or over Discord or something. So yeah, this is I'm sure the outcome will be a much more intimate experience because I can see your facial expressions in real time.
Yeah, well, I mean, usually when you do these, you usually have like a Zoom on or you're on Discord and you can see people's webcams, right? But it's just never the same thing.
It's different when you're just like with the person and can like touch them, and it's just it's always a delay.
So much more physical.
Yeah, so different. Well, the reason we're in the same room together is because we live together in the same house. Because you're my boyfriend.
Yeah. Crazy. I'm sure you're bringing that up in your videos sometimes.
I bring you up in my videos, but you've never been on the podcast before. So this is great that you're on the podcast, I guess.
Yeah, I was on one of your episodes or videos though.
Yeah, you featured in some of my very early videos, and since then I've just I've referenced you.
You've kicked me out.
No, it just didn't, it didn't, it's just about me,
Yeah.
But with my podcast, it's always about with another guest, and I'm surprised it took this long to get you on my podcast. I think the struggle was you weren't sure, like, we could find something for you to, like, talk about, because, me and you, we talk about movies in our real life, and mainly I save movie talk for my channel, and my podcast is about different things with my friends, having conversations about things that happen in, like, the celebrity world, or experiences that I've had, like, with my friends, and I don't know, you just never really wanted to do it before, but I finally got you on here, so thank you for that.
You got a topic in mind?
You know I do. So, like I was mentioning with movies, I usually save this for my channel, but we recently saw the Super Mario Bros. Movie, the new one from Illumination, and then the day before that, we saw Super Mario Bros., which came out in 1993?
Yep.
1993, the live-action one. And watching both of them, I feel like I have stuff I want to say, but not enough to, like, make a video, especially, like, the new one from Illumination. I just really don't have a whole lot to say about that one, and I feel like it'd be weird to make a video just about the live-action 1993, but I figured on a podcast, I might be able to stretch out what I have to say if I have somebody else to also give an opinion, so that's why I have you here. Also, I think you have an interesting perspective as a fan of video games and more connected to the Mario universe than I am.
For sure, because I got all the references in the new movie.
Right, so sure. I would love to have you mention some of those. So we'll get to that in a minute. You could definitely, I already know you're going to have a lot more to say about that than I do. But, okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, though, is Super Mario Bros. 1993, starring Bob Hoskins, John Leguizamo. And I've heard about this movie for a while. This was the first time I had watched it when we watched it together the other day. I'd heard about it as, like, a notoriously, like, terrible movie. Like, one of those, like, famously bad movies. But I'd always wanted to watch it because I was always interested in it. I always thought that casting was, like, good casting. Like, Bob Hoskins as Mario? Sure. John Leguizamo as Luigi? I see that, And it wasn't the first time you saw it, right? When we watched it?
No, I had watched it a couple years before, and when I first heard about this movie, it was through a lot of, like a lot of stuff. It was on the internet, and it was from, like, people reviewing it back in the day. I think it's, like, the Nostalgia Critic and Angry Video Game Nerd. They mentioned Super Mario Bros. Movie a lot. Like, one reviewed it, and the other mentioned it before, and it always just seemed like such a wild, uncharacteristically not Nintendo-like thing. It seemed very much doing its own thing, and it was very odd. And how it did and didn't use the source material.
Yeah, that's one way to describe it. It's definitely odd. It's certainly not what I was expecting at all. I thought it would be more connected to the source material. I thought it was going to be more like a Mario video game, but in movie context. they just really kind of did their own thing with it. How did you feel the first time you saw it? Like, how would you have rated it? What were your first thoughts going into it for the first time?
Well, I think when I finally watched it, and this was like 2017, so about 6 years ago, I already had it in my mind that this was supposed to be like a legendarily bad movie. It didn't understand the source material or whatever. And so I kind of just watched it under that pretense, like, yeah, this is bad. But I really thought the first time I watched it that it was very, like, dull or boring because of that stuff. Because here's the thing, you know, when that movie was made in 1993, Super Mario, while still, like, huge and all that, they were still two-dimensional pixely games, you know? Yeah. So there really, really wasn't much to go off of in terms of making the movie similar to the games, you know? So they definitely had to use a lot more creative license, especially because in the early 90s and CG wasn't as prevalent as it is nowadays. Everything had to be physical, analog, real life props, real life sets, real life people, and all that stuff. And so obviously you can't do the exquisite fantasy stuff that Mario is in. You can't have him in the Mushroom Kingdom and all that stuff. So they definitely had to take a lot of liberties. And back in the day when I watched it, I was like, man, they really just had no idea what they were doing, right? Because there's all this stuff about Dennis Hopper as King Koopa, Bowser, wanting to turn everybody back into their primordial forms as lizards or whatever the fuck. And I was like, okay, this is really weird, and I dig the weirdness of all this stuff, but it's just as a coherent, you know, well put together movie, it's definitely not that.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was weird. I wouldn't even know really how to describe much of the plot. I thought you did a pretty good job of it, but yeah, exactly. The King Bowser Koopa character. First of all, everybody's a human, which I somehow wasn't expecting, like Bowser and everybody to be a human, except for Yoshi, who is still a dinosaur.
Yeah, but he's like a photorealistic sort of looking dinosaur.
He's like an actual like little dinosaur making baby noises.
Animatronic, yeah.
Yeah, and then everybody else is a human, which I expected for like Mario and Luigi and like Daisy and stuff, but like everybody else is a human. And there's at some point like the Koopas like turn. Well, before they're Koopas, they like turn in this. There's this machine.
Yeah.
Where he like sends you back to your primordial state, like you were saying, or he can advance you or something like that, and
you turn into a Goomba.
You turn into a Goomba, which is like a weird little lizard man.
You have a very teeny tiny lizard head,
but a huge body for some reason.
Yeah. Which
is not what you would have looked like.
No.
A million years ago.
And it looks nothing like the video games.
Right. Yeah, you know? That's another thing, is it looks nothing like in the video games, and even I know that. But I do respect that they like tried to be like creative with it, and
it did its own thing for sure.
For sure, and I can't help but respect that. The only thing is, it was just so odd and out there that I was mostly just like confused and kind of like scratching my head, like, what are they trying to do here? Like, what's the point of this? And the weird thing about it too is that it seems like all the actors are taking it so seriously. Like, it seems more like a drama. Like a drama adventure film at times. I would have expected it to have more purposeful comedy than it does.
Right. And it has a very dark tone, and it even gets into like sci-fi, cyberpunk dystopia world.
Dystopian is a good word, yeah.
Yeah, for its environments, which is, it's like an alternative New York City that the Mario brothers, Mario and Luigi Mario, they find themselves in after going through a pipe, right? But it's just, it's not like the classic, you know, green pipe that you go into and you just plop into another world. No, it's like they're in the sewer and they just go through a bunch of shit, and then they end up in a...
Well, they go through like a rock portal. Wall.
Yeah, like a little portal.
They don't even go through a pipe to get to the other universe, like in the new one. They like phase through a rock into another dimension.
Right.
And let's just explain a little bit of the plot really fast. So, speaking of that dimension, just so in case our audience hasn't seen this movie. But yeah, Mario and Luigi, played by Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, who, by the way, were really good.
Terrific casting.
Yeah, casting was great, and the way that they portrayed those characters. But we'll get into that more in a second, because that's mostly what I want to talk about. But they're regular plumbers, guys. They live in Brooklyn. They're kind of like, they don't have a lot of jobs, and so they're kind of struggling. And then they try to fix this, like, big problem in Brooklyn where, like, all the pipes have burst, and so they go deep into the sewage system and find this wall, and Daisy's there, and I don't even want to explain, but she's this activist lady who's also, like, a archaeologist, and she's there, too. She got kidnapped. Anyway, so they, like, phase through this rock wall trying to find Daisy, who's being kidnapped under the sewage system. Because
Luigi has the hots for her.
Yeah, Luigi has a crush on her. And then they phase through and they enter this other dimension, and they explain it that, like, 65 million years ago or whatever, when the meteor took out the dinosaurs, the meteor actually caused a split in dimensions, where there's our universe, the regular human universe, where people evolved from primates, and then split the other universe where people evolved from, like, dinosaurs and reptiles and other things. So all the people in this universe, including King Koopa, Bowser, and everybody else, evolved from, like, lizards and, like, dinosaurs, and so they look slightly different, but they really just look like normal humans with, like, dystopian hairstyles.
And funky clothes. And King Koopa is just trying to merge the dimensions. For some reason. And in doing so, he also created this machine that we were referencing, where he can send you back to your primordial form or advance you, which I feel like could be used for a lot of different things, but he only uses them to, like, punish his like, manservants and turn them into little weird reptile creatures. And I don't know how they got that advanced technology. It's not really explained, and Mario and Luigi have to stop him, essentially, and save Daisy. It's basically the part in Back to the Future Part 2 when they go to alternate 1985 where Biff, he's like the king of the world. He's basically like Donald Trump, and he just has, because he has the sports almanac from the 50s and all that. It's basically sort of like that, but stretched down to a whole movie where they're doing antics on a big dystopian set.
Yes, and it is just quite odd, and I don't really have much else to say about the plot other than that's really weird and really not what I was expecting going into it. Going into it, I knew it was going to be, like, quote-unquote, a bad movie, but I thought, for some reason, that it was going to be, like, a good bad movie. Like, I was going to think it was funny, I was going to have a good time watching it, and it's not that I hated it, but it just turned out to be so different than what I thought, like, and just so, the whole time I was looking at it with just, like, the most confused expression. I just, like, had no idea what was going on or what any of this had to do with the Nintendo game. And maybe it's just because, like, I've never really played a Mario game, that maybe there's just some stuff I just didn't get, but, I mean, regardless, the most enjoyable part for me was the main characters, Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. I thought that they were both great in the role, and I know that they did not enjoy making this movie, but they really took it seriously, and they really gave it their all, and I really respect that, like, from them as actors. Like, at the end of the day, they did their job, and they did it well, you know?
You could definitely tell a lot of hard work went into this movie, and the people who making it probably weren't the happiest making it.
Yeah, but...
But you can kind of feel that energy a little bit. The fact that they are, you know, like, committed to doing it. They're seeing it as work. You know, they're not creatively too inspired. So they're just kind of doing their job and just, like, making it work and stuff. So it's kind of an interesting feeling you get from the movie. Because it's not really all that fun or high-spirited at all.
No, I wouldn't call it fun. I wasn't really having fun watching it.
No.
I was mostly just like, what is going on?
And if you're seeing it through the lens of a kid, you would just be, like, so
you would be
utterly
so
confused.
Bored too. If you were a kid watching this.
Yeah.
Because it definitely feels like more of a grown-up movie, despite how ridiculous it is.
Yeah. So watching it now, a little bit older, I definitely admire the craft a little bit, just because of, like, this is what you had to go off on. Some video games, you know, that aren't too complex. Again, in the 90s, they weren't even 3D yet, you know, so they didn't have much to go off on, is what I'm saying. And it's interesting that they do, like, pull elements from the game, like enemies like the Bullet Bill and the Bob-omb and all that stuff. there's not a whole lot of like attention or like reverence for it, unlike the new Super Mario Brothers
The way they
movie.
introduce that stuff is really weird and random too.
Yeah, but
like they just appear and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but I like that because it's just a part of the world, and that's weird, and it's just like ingrained to the world. Makes it does have a really weird, realistic feeling to it, even though they do pull out fucking super scope bazookas and shit like that. Yeah, there's like sort of a groundedness, and like I said, there's not some kind of reverence for the items and paraphernalia of the Mario universe, which again is completely unlike the new movie.
Yeah, and we'll get to the new movie in a second, but I just want to go back to Mario and Luigi in this one. First of all, do you think that they were like friends? Do you think that there was like an
I feel like they
camaraderie?
definitely bonded over the fact that they hated just working on this movie so much. I don't know specifically why they hated this. I think it's because they like hated the script and it was just like slow going, like the production of it. And, you know, he's basically playing an Italian stereotype a little bit. You know, Bob Hoskins, he's a very serious actor. He's in a lot of serious movies. I don't know, it's like they picked him because he was in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You know, that's like a kid's movie.
And John Leguizamo is Hispanic. Like, he's not Italian.
So I know that they were like doing cocaine and drinking heavily during this movie just to get through the days. I bet they did bond over it. I don't know, maybe they hated each other. I have no idea.
I wonder if they're like still friends.
Well, Bob Hoskins is dead.
What?
Rest in peace, yeah.
When did Bob Hoskins die?
2010 sometime.
Oh my god. You know what? I get Bob Hoskins mixed up with Danny DeVito a lot. And I know Danny DeVito's still alive, so I just like had it in my head that Bob Hoskins was still alive.
Well,
I know John Leguizamo's still alive, and he's still doing movies, and he's still incredible. Which, let me say, I have said this to you before, but John Leguizamo, specifically in this movie, really hot. Like, so hot.
Yeah.
Like, very young John Leguizamo. He's Luigi's the younger brother, and there's definitely a big age gap between them. And he's just, like, adorable. He's just so cute.
It's funny they made Luigi the sexy.
I don't know if they, like, really even tried to do that, because I don't know if anyone else feels that same way about John Leguizamo that I do. But I've always loved him. He's got funny teeth, but the rest of him is, like, really cute. And I don't know if this was around the same time as To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. I think that was, like, 2000?
No.
Was it in the 90s?
Yeah.
Well, around
Early
that time,
90s.
and he's the best part of that movie, too. And he's a drag queen in that one. He's the most beautiful drag queen. He's just...
95.
Oh, so yeah, only like 2 years later was that, and he really took off after that. And you know, recently he's been in The Menu. He was, of course, the voice in Encanto. He's doing shit still, so good for him. None of this ruined any of their careers, so that's good.
I don't know about Bob Hoskins. I don't really know a whole lot they did after that.
He was in Mermaids.
That was 89.
Oh. Maybe it ruined Bob Hoskins' career.
Yeah, it might be one of those movies where it's like, I don't want to make movies
Didn't ruin
anymore.
John's, and that's the important part to me.
Okay. Dennis Hopper, I mean, he was in he's the villain in so many 90s movies, but, I mean, he was in Waterworld after this.
The Aunt Petunia from the Harry Potter series?
Yeah.
She was in this, and this was before any of the Harry Potters came out, so...
Yeah. Well, I don't think this movie was, like, a massive flop. It didn't get good reviews or whatever, but, I mean, the name alone carried it.
Yeah.
Probably
well, it's still notorious to this day, which is saying
as a
something.
bad movie, yeah. Because I really think it's mostly because kids who played the video games, were fans of the video games, were looking for something that was very much like the video games, and then instead they got this really fucking weird, depressing looking
also,
movie.
it's crazy that it took this long for them to make another attempt at a Super Mario's movie. Like, between 1993 and 2023, that's literally 30 years?
Yeah.
Like, they didn't try to do it again. And since then, I'm sure, like, the lore has expanded a little bit. There's now, like, 3D animation, and there's just, like, a lot has been added to the Mario games that make for, like, a more well-rounded film. There's more world building that's already been done that you could just, like, put in a movie. It's probably easier to make a story now than it was then.
Definitely.
So they did it. I don't know why it took so long, but they did finally do it. And it was Illumination, which I thought was weird that Illumination was the studio that made it. I thought it was weird and not weird. And here's why. Weird because I would have thought that it would, with such a big, like, property, such a like a well-known property, a well-known name, Mario and the Mario Bros and whatever. I would have thought it would have been a bigger production by it, like, I don't want to say more like well-respected studio, but like a studio known for I don't know, just better films. I don't know. But because Illumination, they're pretty much known for making films in like the cheapest way possible that all look very similar and just like beat a dead horse to try to like keep getting money out of these properties that they've created. So I'm also not surprised that it was Illumination, because of course they're going to try to bank on this big name, this big property, and make it in a super cheap way, knowing that it's going to sell lots of tickets and they're going to make tons of money back. But at the same time, I don't know why like the creators and like the owners of the Mario property would like allow this studio particularly to make this movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I totally understand why they pick it, because Pixar does their own things. DreamWorks does not do licensed movies or anything like that outside of their own stuff. So Illumination, you know, they still have like $80, $100 million budgets, and their movies make a lot of money, and they're definitely willing to pimp themselves out, sell their souls, you know, for
yeah, they'll do anything for money over at
licenses.
Illumination. It's basically like the money-making animation studio, because they do it so cheaply, and that's why their like films, like the animation all looks the same.
And their humor and their like just their style is so broad, and Nintendo's definitely not against appealing to a very broad audience, you know.
Yeah, well, it's just like every Illumination film is very similar in what it looks like, in what the dialogue and comedy is. And so I would have thought, like, you know, it was kind of a gamble making the Mario movie just to be like every other, like Despicable Me or, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
And you want to I would feel like you would want to differentiate this from the other movies. But, you know, I guess it's working out for them because it's making a whole lot of money since it came out over the weekend. So I guess it's working, you know, so I can't fault them for that. You know, make your money, I guess. But I guess let's talk about the actual movie.
Well, if we're still going to talk about corporate stuff, I mean, this is officially a direct collaboration between Nintendo and Illumination. It's not just like, hey, Nintendo, we're giving you the rights, or Illumination, we're giving you the rights to make the Mario movie. And when you watch the movie, you can definitely tell that Nintendo had a very strict like guideline of how you're supposed to treat this, and how you're supposed to use this character, and this is what so-and-so does, and you have to have this and this and that. So it does seem like Illumination, for the first time in their studio's history, like they actually had to bend the knee a bit for other people to make some sort of creative decisions for them. It seems like Illumination were the ones who obviously did the animation and probably just helped out making like some sort of skeletal script for them to put the Mario branding stuff on.
Yeah, because I guess it was exactly the same as, like, well, certainly not like the Minions, where it's just like the stupidest, dumbest comedy. Yeah, lowest brow baby content. Not to insult anyone that likes the Minions, but that's just what it is. It was a little bit better than that, and they tried. So
it's certainly not demeaning.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's talk about the actual movie then. I don't have a whole lot to say about the plot, but you being a Mario fan, I don't know if you do. Do you want to like explain it a little bit and tell me what you thought about it?
Well, it was very obvious from the get-go what I thought this movie was going to be. You know, it was going to be a very broad, audience-pleasing, kid-centered movie that definitely rested on Hollywood laurels when it comes to voice acting and casting and all that stuff. Because, of course, it's Mario, and the games themselves don't have stories or a whole lot of voice acting or any sort of plot in general. So it was very much like, hey, the story itself doesn't really matter outside of you need to help the princess or you need to save somebody or whatever. It's like just a basic cartoon story formula. You know, so that I already got that feeling when they announced the cast members and all that stuff, and when the first trailer came out. So I pretty much knew what to expect. It was really just as a movie, thinking of it as a movie, how would it actually turn out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've played all the main Mario games. I know whatever semblance of lore there is, not much. It's mostly just the cartoon-esque world that Nintendo has made, and every new game has different level aesthetics, different enemies, characters, stuff like that, but it's all in service of gameplay, and obviously it's a movie, so it's really just taking the Mario look, the characters, the how appealing everything is designed visually from those games, and just putting onto a very bare bones story to make it work as a movie, a visually exciting movie with like cute character designs and stuff like that. And that's exactly what the movie ended up being.
Well, I'll get into what it's about then. For anyone who hasn't seen it,
I don't care about what the actual happenings of the story be.
No, I mean that's fine that you don't care. But I want to, since we're going to talk about the movie, might as well say a little bit about what it's actually about. Basically, I mean, everyone who's a bad guy is a bad guy. Everyone who's a good guy is a good guy, just like in the games. So I wouldn't expect it otherwise. They do change Princess Peach's character a little bit from how she is in the games, at least from what I know. But basically, Bowser is trying to take over all the kingdoms, the Mushroom Kingdom, the Donkey Kong Kingdom, all that stuff. And Mario and Luigi are just regular plumbers
from New York.
Yeah.
Similar to the Super Mario Bros. Movie from 1993. They're just regular plumbers.
Yeah, they're just regular plumbers from New York in their own dimension, separate from where all
That's
the kingdoms are.
supposed to be the real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they get into this like sewer system. They find this like green pipe. They both go in it. They end up separating. Luigi ends up in like the evil Bowser Kingdom. Mario ends up in the Mushroom Kingdom. Meets all the little Goombas and the Toads.
The Goombas are the bad.
The Goombas are the bad guys. Yeah. He meets the Toads. Meets Princess Peach, who's like badass girl boss character. Princess Peach. And
she's the ruler of Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah, she's the ruler of Mushroom Kingdom, but she's not from Mushroom Kingdom, which they explained a little bit, and I'm sure they'll expand upon in the inevitable sequel. But anyway, so Mario's like, I gotta find my brother, I gotta rescue him from Bowser, and Peach is like, I gotta rescue everybody from Bowser, and so they kind of band together and like fight Bowser. He has to fight Donkey Kong to like get the Kong army, and I kind of like that scene. That scene was funny.
Yeah, so once Mario comes to the Mushroom Kingdom, it's something like, oh, hey, Bowser, to get Bowser, to have a fighting chance against Bowser, you need to get help from the Kongs.
Yeah.
From the Kong family. It's like, okay, so go to Donkey Kong Land, and then it turns out there's like a big like tournament or something like that.
Mario has to, the Daddy Kong.
Cranky Kong
is like, you can have my army if you, Mario, can defeat my son, Donkey Kong. And they introduce like the power-up blocks as just like things that exist in this world. So there's like power-ups everywhere, and each one does a different thing. And just like in the video game. And in this world, like, there's different ones, and you just have to hit them and see what you get. And so he uses a bunch of different ones, and it's kind of cool. We get to see what each of the power-ups does, and he discovers them and defeats Donkey Kong, who's voiced by Seth Rogen, very obviously, because he does his Seth Rogen laugh.
I think all the casting, I don't think any of them, like, really, like, blended into their roles.
Well, that's the thing that I actually really wanted to talk about. The thing that a lot of animated movies are doing, at least nowadays, and maybe they've always done this, but nowadays that I've noticed in newer animation films is that they don't get like real like voice actors anymore, like actors who like that's their job, like a Tara Strong or people like that who can do a whole bunch of different voices, even like Seth MacFarlane or something like that, where he can change.
Or Mario's original video game actor, Charles Martinet.
Well, like where that's their job is to like do voices. The guy that did all the ones on Looney Tunes, where you change Mel Blanc, you change it to the character, and so your voice becomes that character. Like you're no longer that actor, you're that character, and that's the whole point of voice acting, is to create a voice specifically for this character and not just use your own. But what a lot of animated movies are doing now is they're casting these big names, these voices that we recognize. So people watch it because the voice we recognize. Like I never, not once didn't recognize that was Chris Pratt's voice as Mario, or Anya Taylor-Joy's voice as Peach.
It's just that it seemed like for this movie specifically, they picked the actors because they decided they wanted to go through the Hollywood route of discernible names. They tried to pick the characters based off the person's traits. So Chris Pratt is the everyman. You know, the heroic sort of guy. That's what he does. Charlie Day, he's a bit neurotic. Luigi's a bit of a dork. You know, kind of like he's the second banana sort of guy. Princess Peach, beautiful. Anya Taylor-Joy, so pretty. Jack Black, big old goofball, has like a sort of charming demeanor to him that's still like sort of threatening because, you know, Jack Black.
Well, Jack Black seemed to be like the only one who was like actually trying to put on. He still sounded like Jack Black, but he was trying to put on a voice for Bowser.
Right.
Whereas I feel like all the other actors, except for maybe a very slight accent from Chris Pratt,
very undiscernible.
Very, very slight. Like some words would have a kind of like Italian twang on
pretty
it.
Muddy.
Yeah, but at the end it just sounded like Chris Pratt and like Anya and all them, and they're banking on the name for the animated characters, so they're not their own characters. It's that actor as that character, rather than the character being themselves, which I don't personally like. I feel like if you want to have a star-studded affair, lots of actors in a movie, that's like for like live action, big blockbuster kind of movies, not animation. For me, when I'm watching an animation, I don't want to think about who's voicing it.
You want to be like sucked up in the cartoon world.
I want to be sucked up in the story in that world, and I can't do that if the whole time I know exactly who is saying it and I'm just picturing them in the booth saying these lines. Like that's all I can picture is like Seth Rogen doing his little laugh for Donkey Kong instead of like, I never saw that as Donkey Kong. It was Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, you know?
But, you know, of course, here's the thing, because Donkey Kong in the games just makes ape noises.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like they totally understood like creative liberty in that sense. Like they felt that was acceptable because other than the voices, it's very strict about its Nintendo regiment in terms of like how the world behaves or how characters work in the world. It's basically what you see is what you get, similar to the games in that way. You know, enemies are the enemies, good guys are the good guys. They're just doing stuff, basically.
Yeah, but they had the freedom to like give unique voices and characteristics to these characters that weren't there before because none of them really spoke in the games. And instead they were just like filling it in with a celebrity voice instead of what I thought. They could have done something cool and unique and different with it, but they just did what all the other animated movies are doing these days, where they're just like, I'm just going to give this celebrity voice to this character.
Right.
And I don't know, that just like took me out of it. And I'm not saying it was a bad movie. I thought it was an average movie. I thought it was okay, you know. I wasn't bored. It was good to look at. I loved all the colors, I guess.
It's very fast-paced.
Very fast-paced. They go through the story like boom, 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 you know? It was only 90 minutes.
It was only 90 minutes, and it really feels like an hour-long movie just because every scene is just like, hey, we have to move on. We have to go to the next thing, then to the next thing.
Yeah, which is another thing. They want to keep you entertained, which makes me think, like, I mean, obviously this was made for children. And so they had to, like, move the story along quickly and have plenty of, like, colors and action things and, like, fun stuff to look at to keep you entertained every second because it's for kids. And babies love this movie. There's some kids in our theater and some adults who were also very excited, but, you know, it was for the kids.
Very excited. Some adults are way more excited than kids, you know?
Yeah, well, they like because, oh my god, it's Mario, and I get that reference. That's the adults. Right. The kids are like, oh my god, pretty colors, you know? So it's for everybody in that sense who is connected to the Mario movies. Mario franchise, I mean, like the source material.
Yeah.
So you said that you got, like, all the references. Was there any, like, deep cuts that you noticed?
Yeah. When Luigi gets a phone call, it's the GameCube startup sound. It goes do. I heard the adult man saying next to us, to his whole family, that's a GameCube.
Yeah, anytime there was any sort of reference, someone in the theater said it out loud just to be like, I know what that is.
There's a character in the beginning of the movie because they have like a Mario Brothers commercial, and it's the song from the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, which was a 90s TV show that had like an animated segment and a live action segment, and they do the theme song from that. It's on YouTube. And right after they play that commercial, there's a character in the real world who is wearing a Wrecking Crew hat, and Wrecking Crew is an old Nintendo arcade game.
Yeah, the Spike character.
Yes.
Who is like bullying these adult men.
Yeah, so he's in a game called Wrecking Crew, and the main guy looks very similar to Mario.
Yeah, so I mean there was like fun references, and even some that like I got. I mean just from like playing like Mario Kart and like some of the original Mario games here and there. I was like, oh yeah, like that's cool that they included that.
Yeah, because everything in here is from, you know, a game or an adjacent game, because like all the Kong stuff is from Donkey Kong Country, because they mentioned Diddy Kong in the scene where Mario fights Donkey Kong. There's the whole Rainbow Road like set piece, and of course that's from Mario Kart. Characters from different games and all that stuff, and it's fun to watch in a childish way.
Yeah. Like, get yourself in a childish space. And it's just, like, enjoyable. Like, oh, haha. You know, I feel like just a lot of this, though, why some people, like, why the movie isn't, like, great. Like, it's not bad, but it's not, like, great.
I think it's just because the script, there's really nothing.
There's really nothing to the script, that's true. There's not a whole lot to the story. It's just, like, a very basic sort of plot, stringing these characters together. But also a lot of, like, the reason, like, people liked it is just because it's like, oh, I recognize that. The nostalgia factor really helps this movie a lot. Where if this was the same movie but it wasn't based on anything, like it wasn't Mario, it would just be a run-of-the-mill, boring, nothing kind of movie. But because it is Mario and it has all these characters and these things that people love, it really boosted it quite a bit.
So appealing.
Very appealing because of nostalgia and, oh, I recognize that style of film.
Right. And it's the thing of like, hey, this thing that I've kept to myself, or, you know, I've played with friends on my TV, you know, ever since I was a kid. Seeing that on the big screen, and it looks amazing, you know, like objectively, like it looks very polished and colorful and frenzied and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the same reason I would see a movie based off of a book that I've read. Because a movie based off of a book that I haven't read, I don't really care about. But when I read the book, I have to see the movie and see, oh, they included that scene. Oh, they changed this. They did something different to their character, you know? And it's just like a different, more interactive experience.
Right.
That just, I don't know, it connects with the audience in a different way than like a regular movie not based on something is. You know? I want to go back, because I forgot to mention this, about Super Mario Bros. 1993. So I was going to ask you if you have like a favorite part of that movie, because I know mine is one joke. It's the only time I laughed. When they're in the other dimension and they like get arrested. They're like in the like prison in the other dimension, and the like lady at the prison is like checking them out or whatever after they get arrested. And she asks them their name, and she asks Mario, she says, what's your name? And he says, Mario. She says, what's your last name? He says, Mario. Like he's offended, like the question is stupid. She's like, Mario. And he's like, yeah. And then she goes to Luigi, and she's like, and what's your name? He says, Luigi. And she says, Luigi? And he says, no, Luigi Mario. We're the Mario brothers. And I thought that was so funny.
Yeah. And I really don't think it was trying to be a joke. It was just like, hey, they're called the Mario Bros. I'm sure.
But they didn't have a joke like that in the new one. They're called the Mario Brothers, but there's no joke of like, yeah, my name's Mario. Or Luigi Mario.
Nintendo may honestly still have sour grapes from that movie. Even though like everybody nowadays like, oh, it's fun. And I really think because of the new cartoon movie, that it does give people a lot more incentive to appreciate the 90s movie, because it is so much its own thing, and it deviates from the games in a way that makes it its own, you know? But to me, like, that always came off as like an excuse to like realistically explain why they're called the Mario Brothers. You know,
because Mario's the main brother.
That's the only way that makes sense.
Mario's the main brother. Luigi's just the side character. But they didn't want to be like, it'd be weird if they said that. So their last names have to be Mario.
Yeah,
And yeah, they don't say that at all in the new one. Which, yeah, maybe they were just like, yeah, we're not going to make the same joke. But I mean, that's the only way that it makes sense.
Could have been another reference to it.
Why else are you called the Mario Brothers?
Why not? Yeah.
It's Mario and his brother. You know what I mean? But yeah, I wanted to ask you, was there any like particular part? We'll just go back to the 1993 one for a second. Any particular part that really stood out to you as being good or funny, or tell me about it.
At the end, when King Koopa Dennis Hopper comes back to the real world and he shoots the bad business guy with the super scope bazooka, and he turns into a monkey. And he goes, "Monkey." That was the best part.
Yeah, that was funny. I liked Yoshi in that one because he made little baby sounds. He went, like.
It's surprising that Yoshi is in it more in the 1993 movie than the new one.
Yeah, I was really upset about that because Yoshi is my favorite Mario Universe character. Aside from I like Princess Peach out of the humans, but my favorite character, I just love Yoshi. He's just so cute. And I like he goes, Yoshi, he's so cute. And he wasn't in it, but his egg was in the post-credit scene. So you know there's going to be a sequel, and hopefully it's going to have a lot of Yoshi in it.
That's what it seems like. There's also a scene when they're adventuring, we got to get to Princess Peach's castle, and there's 5 seconds of a herd of Yoshis walking around, because Yoshi's a race.
Yeah, so there's a couple multicolored Yoshis for 1 second.
Yeah.
But Yoshi himself. Well, what about the new one then? Was there a particular scene or joke or something or line of dialogue?
I'm sure there was, but honestly, after it went on for a while, it's just kind of oh yeah, this is just pleasing to watch. I'm just gonna sit back and just let this wash over me, because it really does. Once you realize just that there's just nothing going on, it really just becomes eye candy. So really, it feels like in between Mario and Donkey Kong becoming friends and rescuing Luigi up until that point, there's a whole section that I'm just
most of why I like the film is definitely the aesthetics, just the bright colors, and there's a complaint that's going on about Disney remakes right now, the Disney live action remakes.
So horrifically ugly.
Yeah, they're very dark color palette. They
realistic.
They need to. The real world it can be colorful, and I see that because the original Disney films are bright and colorful and fun to look at, and you can lend that to live action. You can make brighter costumes and bright lighting and brighter hair. My only complaint about the Little Mermaid trailer is the coloring, but also Ariel's hair. I know there's a whole controversy about Ariel. I don't care about that. I'm sure she's gonna be great as Ariel, but her hair, they made it more a orangey gingery brown than a red. And they could have given her red braids. They could have done that, and they didn't. But I'm missing the brightness. I'm missing the life in these movies, and that was the same thing with the Lion King and Aladdin and all that stuff. It didn't have any life. Exactly, it was soulless, and it wasn't fun to look at. At least this movie, yes, it's animated, but you could do it in live action too. It was really nice to look at. It was beautiful to look at. And at the end of the day, everybody enjoys colors,
Well, when you put it that way.
So I don't know why they keep doing the same formula with the Disney remakes, and it's just so ugly. And those movies would be so much better if it was at least nice to look at, So that's what I like about the Super Mario Bros. Movie, is that it was nice to look at.
It had plenty of colors.
It was so pretty. It was just a pretty white colors, and she had a pink dress, and then she had a blue dress, and it was very pretty. But one thing I wanted to say is that there wasn't, because the dialogue wasn't really anything special, there's not really a particular scene, or I didn't think it was really a comedy either. I know there was jokes and people laughed, but there's not really any that stand out to me in retrospect.
It's a kids' adventure movie.
Kids' adventure movie. There's really nothing that stood out to me particularly that I would say I really liked that part, other than as a whole I like the colors, I've been saying. But one part that stood out to me that I did laugh at, and it's because we had talked about it before the movie. You and me went with some of your friends, and it was this whole thing, and we were talking beforehand about Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. And we were how much you want to bet he's going to do his Seth Rogen laugh, his laugh that he does in every movie he's ever been in. And I was he's totally going to do it. He's going to smash Mario on the ground, and then he's going to do his laugh at him.
He's going to
And that's pretty much exactly what happens.
and they definitely like linger on it because it's just a shot of Donkey Kong, like a close up of his face doing that,
laughing after like Mario is like on the ground or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then
it was really fun.
And we all laughed because that's exactly what I said would happen.
It's the same thing as the Chip and Dale movie.
Chip and Dale, Rescue Ranger. Post Malone sang that theme song. I've been listening to it.
Anyways, the only good part of that was the fact that they really just shoved his laugh in your face. Him laughing right at you. That was funny. That was funny. That was a good part. And I mean, that whole like Mario versus Donkey Kong thing, that was pretty violent.
It was. I like the parts where he was like getting the different power-ups because he didn't know about them, and when he turns into the kitty and he turns into the raccoon, and he was just so cute.
Yeah. No, that's from a game.
I know. I played that game.
3D World.
I know. I played the one where we played the one together.
Super Mario 3D World.
Yeah. We played that together, and I thought it was cute then. I think it's cute now.
Yeah. And doesn't that game just like look so similar to the movie though? From what you recall? Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't really have to do any character design because these characters already exist in 3D, so
yeah.
That's good for them.
Yeah, just with extra movie polish and extra mustache hair rendering. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, well, now that we've discussed both of these movies, first of all, is there anything you'd like to add about either of them to kind of wrap up the Mario part?
The new movie is like a really bad sugary junk food like high that you get.
Yeah. And
I think it maintains it for the most part, you know, because they do things to spice it up and have like funny little bits like Jack Black Bowser singing a song about Princess Peach.
Oh, I forgot about that, but I would say that's definitely my favorite part.
Yeah.
When he sings his Peaches, Peaches, Peaches song.
They'll have like amusing little diversions like with the Magic Koopa, the wizard guy is like his assistant.
Yeah.
Like when he dressed up as
Peach
to
cute. Propose to her. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, the movie is just so fast paced that it's very appealing to a childlike sensibility, but it's like empty calories because you know, there's nothing.
Oh, the gamer adults in the audience loved the Peaches, Peaches, Peaches song.
I'm sure they did. Yeah. So I think like the success of this movie really boils down to the fact that the adults who play Nintendo, which is a great big deal of the people who play like Nintendo games, are adults. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. It's clear that there is an audience just as much for that as there is kids, so that's sort of blending together, especially since it's from another medium, because, you know, I know a lot of game people, I know a lot of movie people, but they're in very separate communities. I've seen so many people from the gaming sphere that I follow who don't talk about movies or whatever, and of course they're talking all about this movie, you know. And it's been interesting to watch movie people sort of weigh their takes in, because it seems like depending on the camp you are, you have very similar reactions depending on your camp. Because if you see this movie as a movie first and not like a love letter to you, the gamer, it's a little bit of hot air.
Yeah. You know, I can't wait for the inevitable Animal Crossing movie. Yeah. And just how good and cozy I'm going to feel watching that.
To be fair, along with there being another Mario Brothers movie that we haven't talked about, it's an 80s cartoon. Oh. 2D, like Studio Ghibli style.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. Super Mario Brothers Rescue Princess Peach.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. There's a Mario movie in the 80s, and it recently just got restored. This came out like a year after the original game came out.
Oh. Okay, yeah.
There's a cartoon film. There's also an Animal Crossing cartoon movie.
Way.
Yeah, there absolutely is. Like 2008.
Oh, shit. Well, so much has happened in the Animal Crossing universe since 2008. I used to play it, I want to say as early as 2010. I've been playing Animal Crossing on the Wii.
The Super Mario Bros. The Great Mission to Rescue Princess Peach, 1986. It's an actual movie.
Well, maybe I'll have to react to parts of this like on my YouTube channel because it doesn't really lend itself to the podcast if the viewers can't see it.
I just wanted to get your take on that.
Well, very interesting. Looks very cartoony. I'll have to include that on the channel somehow.
Really, but here's the thing. So when it comes to like the discussion around this movie, it really comes down to, hey, I'm a Mario fan. I love Nintendo, and this was just freaking sweet. Yeah. You know, they really enjoyed it and all that stuff. They had a great time, and you know, good for them. Because I had a good time too. But on the other side, there's just a lot of people who take like a great stance against the meaninglessness of it, or just how, because it's a movie that is very clear and upfront about it just wanting to entertain you, and when it comes to critics and movie people and all that stuff, they are very much, I don't know, against that, or it needs to have a higher level of quality, I guess you could say, when it comes to like what it has to do to be a movie.
Yeah, I mean, well said. I get. This was just like
what I mean?
This was just like a fun little Mario movie. It wasn't supposed to be like a serious thing like the 1993 one was supposed to be serious.
But it's been funny to see like the discussion around that, like people who don't usually typically care or look into movies being like really shocked that as a movie, a lot of people who are more about movies like really cared about that, and so there's been sort of a culture war.
Yeah, well, like, because as a movie, like we were saying, regardless of source material, as a movie, it's really basic.
Yeah.
It's the source material that elevates it. So, yeah, it is an interesting, like, merging of worlds, like the gaming world and the film community, kind of, where they both have something to get from it, and you either, not that you either love it or hate it, but there's strong opinions all around from, like, where you're coming from, like, at what angle you're seeing this movie, you know?
But I think at the end of the day, it's just an entertaining, visually pleasing, breezy sort of movie.
Well, you're coming from both worlds, both communities.
True. So it's I do have to really pick here.
I feel like you have a special appreciation for it.
Because I care about how movies are made and all that stuff, but also I do just want to see Bing Bing Wahoo Mario.
I also just like the Mario brothers.
I just like the Mario.
I want to see him ride his cart, and I want to see him get the power-ups and
go
Yahoo! I want him to go Wahoo! And he does.
And he certainly does do that.
He sure does. He says Wahoo! And I cheered and I clapped.
I cheered and I clapped a lot. God,
so much. Yeah, the guy next to me was really enjoying this. Every single reference, every single thing...
Guffawed.
He needed us to know. He needed the whole theater to know that he understood every reference and he loved Mario. Every single thing was like they can't hear you, bro. They can't hear you, bro.
Oh, we can hear him.
Like, well, the film can't. But we know, we get it. You're a Mario fan. And then at the end, as we were leaving the theater, he said 3 separate times because nobody was responding to him. So who's ready for a sequel, huh? And then nobody said anything. 2 seconds later, he said, again, as if he did not say it the first time, he said, so who's ready for a sequel? Because there's an end credit scene, which, of course, means there's going to be a sequel. And hints along the way, like Peach's backstory and whatever. Like, we'll find more about that later. And then I kind of, like, tried to respond just to be nice. I was like, yeah, haha. And then when we were getting to the stairs, like, a few seconds later, he said it again. And said... So who's ready for a sequel? And then finally the guys behind him like engaged him in conversation.
Yeah, bro, it's been so long. That Zelda movie, bro, that's coming soon. What took so long?
That guy was like, yeah, we should have had a Zelda. He didn't want just like a regular response. He wanted someone to engage in conversation with him because he was there alone. So glad he got that because that was not going to be me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think overall, I think we both agree the movie's fine. If you were going to ask which one's better, it's really 2 opposite ends. I think the Super Mario Bros. 1993 movie is more interesting. I think after you've seen it, it's more interesting to think about. And it certainly did something that was unique in the movie world in terms of... It basically had nothing to work with because the idea of like being slavishly devoted to the aesthetics and the world of Mario would be such a silly idea to do in the 90s when it really wasn't possible or a thing. So they really just did their own thing and tried to make it work. Right?
Well, I wasn't even going to ask you which one you thought was better because I don't think you can compare them in that way.
That's true. But I really think they're like on the similar level of fine.
Yeah, they're both fine. One's a little bit weirder than the other. Which
I think
which isn't a detriment. Yeah.
I think that's what gives it its appeal.
Yeah, I mean, the more unique I'm always going to give a movie points for being unique and being different. Mm-hmm. You know, and it certainly was that. You know, the 1993 one, anyway. This one, as we've been saying, is like super basic as a movie, but...
And there's plenty of things where you say, oh, Nintendo was responsible for this, or Illumination was responsible for that. A lot of, like, the real-world parts in the beginning felt very, like, Illumination-esque. Like, the designs of the real-life people and characters and all that stuff.
The way they interact, like the family, like the funny family.
Yeah. But once it gets to the Mushroom Kingdom, it's basically, you know... the Nintendo show with a little bit of Illumination type gags and stuff, and also I do want to. I think the most normie take I have on this movie is that the needle drops, the licensed songs they have in this, they're pretty bad. Like, it was pretty. It was like just like, oh, come on, bro.
Like what?
Take on Me, Thunderstruck, AC/DC, having AC/DC songs and the Mario movie. It's like that seems like a weird thing that Nintendo probably had to like.
Illumination loves using licensed.
Yeah, see, that seemed like a Illumination decision.
I mean, just both of the Sing movies are just full of like, oh, I like that song, you know.
Yeah, because I bet they're like, yeah, I mean, we're gonna use the Mario movie or the Mario series soundtrack, you know, for like the smaller stuff and all that, but when we need to transition to one of those bigger scenes, we gotta have AC/DC, we gotta have Aha.
We gotta have songs people recognize.
Yeah.
And like.
So I definitely agree. I think that was bad. And there was one of those adult fans who made sure to talk to his girlfriend about the fact that, oh, you know,
Yeah, get your thoughts out.
No, this really happened before the movie, before we saw it. He said something along the lines of, yeah, they were supposed, in that scene where they played Take On Me, it was supposed to have this other song that was super badass, and it's like a Mario song, or whatever, right? Oh, no, but they took that out and put the song in there. Oh. It's like, okay.
Well, before the movie, I was sitting with you, and you said, hey, listen, I'm going to know all of these references.
And I did, but I forgot all of them.
So if you don't get any, just ask me, and I'll tell you what it is. And I was like, okay.
To be honest, like, there weren't a whole... There was some deep cut stuff I kind of already said them and stuff, but honestly, I've just forgotten now. I was like, okay.
All right, well, before I give you our wrap-up question, is there any last thoughts you have to say about the movies? Those were kind of our last thoughts, but is there a last thought before the wrap-up?
I thought Fred Armstrong as Cranky...
Fred Armisen.
Armisen, sorry. It was a very interesting take on that character, Cranky Kong. Because Cranky Kong, if you didn't know...
I didn't.
Is...
I don't know him.
Okay, so...
Is he not cranky?
No, he is the original Donkey Kong.
Oh.
Like the original arcade game, Donkey Kong, with Jumpman in it, Mario, who later became Mario. The original Donkey Kong, okay, there's that.
Yeah.
There's a game, Donkey Kong Jr. It's like a little Donkey Kong. It's an arcade game.
Little Donkey Kong.
And then, like 10 years after that game, Donkey Kong Country comes out, right? And the shtick is that the original Donkey Kong from that game is Cranky Kong, and Donkey Kong Jr. grows up to be Donkey Kong.
Oh. In
Donkey Kong Country. And from there on out, it's technically Donkey Kong Jr.
I didn't know any of this lore.
Yeah.
Holy
and
shit.
Diddy Kong, who shows up in the movie very briefly. Because there's a whole thing like, shut up, Diddy.
Right.
He's like, oh, and there's...
Yeah, everybody cheered for Diddy Kong.
Yeah, he's just like his friend.
He's his friend.
Yeah, Diddy
Okay.
Kong.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of lore. Cranky Kong is the original Donkey Kong.
Yeah, well, in the movie, he's Donkey Kong's dad.
But he's supposed to be like an old grandma, like he's supposed to be like a geezer.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know? That was his very basic characterization.
He tried to make him kind of sound geezery.
No, he makes it sound like that. Like he's
well, that's
a little
what Fred
bit
Armisen sounds like.
I know, but it was a very weird, kind of interesting take on that.
He was trying to do like a Woody Allen voice.
Yeah, Donkey Kong, like, I just thought that was a very weird idea for that. 'Cause that doesn't register to me as like a.
That's Fred
geezer.
Armisen's old man voice is Woody Allen.
I guess so. I just strange.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Interesting take. I didn't know any of that stuff.
Yeah. So I feel like that was the most daring vocal performance of the movie, because I thought everybody else was either forgettable, like whatever, or just fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know.
Okay. Well, wrap up question. Now that we have exhausted the conversation about the Mario movies, what are some movies you're looking forward to?
What were the trailers before this movie? Oppenheimer.
That was not before Mario. No, it was probably like kids' movies. The Transformers movie.
The world. Yeah. Yeah, and what's really strange about that trailer is that it plays a Notorious B.I.G. song, and like throughout the whole trailer, it's like, if you don't know, now you know. You know that song?
Yeah.
And the song, the thing he says right after that is the word.
The N-word?
Yeah. So I always just thought, it's like, are they gonna say it?
I don't think they say it.
I know, but it's just so weird. It's like, if you don't know, now you know.
Well, and there's a trailer, I forget what movie it was for, but they used Lil Nas X Montero, which is
I have no idea.
which is about sex, but they specifically take out all the sex parts of it.
Yeah, it's the same
So the
thing.
part where he says, "Call me by your name," they use that part.
I have no idea what movie that was.
I don't remember the movie what it was for, but I think it was for like Lightyear, not Lightyear, but like an animated movie, and I was like, why are they using a Lil Nas X song? That's like an explosives.
There was a really weird trailer for the next Illumination movie.
The
Remember?
Ducks movie, Migration.
Yeah, like the trailer for that is like whatever.
Yeah.
You know, kids movie.
Yeah.
But like the trailer's like, from the people who brought you Despicable Me. Here's a clip from Despicable Me. From the people who brought you Minions. Scene from Minions. From the people who brought you The Secret Life of Pets.
They had to remind you that they made
from
stuff.
the people who makes the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Yahoo! Whoa! Comes the next great movie from the people at Illumination.
Well, yeah, they have to remind you that they've made movies that you like, so you're gonna like this one if you like the other ones.
Yeah, but it was just so on the nose and just like pandering. I don't know.
Well, you have to do that now. You have to tell people that I've made
Well, it's an
movies
old
that
practice.
you liked.
It's a very old practice that's not been in commission lately. But between that and the Dungeons and Dragons movie, having a trailer where there was like a announcer guy saying like, with the cast that kicks ass, they're gonna be busting some balls.
Are you looking forward to any of these movies? Because that's what I asked you.
No.
Are you looking forward to Migration?
No movies. Barbie.
You're not looking forward to Oppenheimer?
Of course I am.
Or Transformers?
No.
Fast X?
Well, that wasn't before Mario.
They did play the Fast X trailer before Mario. And I'm not talking about trailers before Mario. I'm just in general asking you, are there any movies that you're looking forward to?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Renfield.
Yeah.
With Nick Cage Dracula.
I'm not.
Okay, well that's you. I'm looking forward to Barbie as well and Oppenheimer. Because
sick double feature.
I knew who J. Robert Oppenheimer was before they announced this movie. So when they did announce this movie, I got to feel smart and be like, oh, J. Robert Oppenheimer, he made the atomic bomb. I already knew that. Because of Epic Rap Battles of History. Wow. Thank you, ERB, for doing an Oppenheimer rap. It was Oppenheimer versus...
Who would have known about it before that?
Versus the Marvel villain, whatever his name was.
Yeah. Really, there was actually something I wanted to talk about in terms of the ramifications of the Mario movie.
Okay.
Like what it means now. Okay, so the movie is the highest grossing animated movie of all time ever. It made $370 million worldwide in its first weekend. That is buku banana money. So what now? Do we get Nintendo Cinematic Universe?
Oh, I'm sure. Well, there's definitely going to be a sequel.
A sequel. They want to do spin-offs with
They're
Donkey Kong.
gonna make a They're
gonna make the Zelda
Donkey
movie.
Kong's gonna have his Kong Universe movie. Zelda's gonna get a movie. Animal Crossing's gonna get another movie.
The Star Fox, Metroid, like the Kirby.
Kirby's gonna get a movie for sure.
Metroid.
You can pump out so many sequels to the Mario movie.
And the thing is, Nintendo has their own Avengers thing, Super Smash Brothers, where they have all the characters come in.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can already see it's gonna happen.
Kingdom Hearts movie. Well,
that's
just with
Final Fantasy
with a resurgence
Disney.
of there's always been video game movies, but this might prompt a surgence of animated, like video game movies, and like with games like that, it'd be easy to make.
But these movies from now on are going to be very heavily reliant on the source material, like guiding like the production of it.
Super easy to just pump out a movie where it's already a pre-established lore and characters.
Like, hey, the game itself is enough of a blueprint to make a movie based.
I mean, people already love and connect to these characters. How much easier can it be to make a movie?
I think the thing with movies and games, it's always been like, oh, movies are so much better than games. Like, we have to somehow make this fucking weird bullshit work on our level of movies. And when they try and do that, when Hollywood tries to do that, it just doesn't work because it's usually using like the lowest grade like parts that they have to make like a chunky sort of movie. Like, have you seen a Resident Evil movie before? It's nothing like the games. They're nothing like the games at all, and it's just
I feel like
nonsense.
Those, if they were based more on the games, would be really good movies. But I haven't actually seen the movies, so I can't really say that.
True.
But if they're not like the games are really interesting.
Right.
So I would totally watch it I like watching people play it because it feels like a movie. Like, I'd rather watch people play it than play it.
Right.
Because I want it to be a movie.
But you could see how it could be a movie, and there are like CG Resident Evil movies already that are kind of like the games, just a lot of like action scenes and shit.
Yeah.
And man, they're bad. they're just nonsense.
Well, yeah, video game movies notoriously don't do very well.
I still don't think there's like an actual great or even like very good video game movie.
Yeah. Dwayne The Rock Johnson is in a lot of them, and he was in Doom and Rampage.
Yeah, and both of those were pretty bad. Yeah.
So I don't know, all the Uwe Boll movies.
Just unwatchable.
Yeah, Dead Island or whatever.
Dead Island, and House of the Dead, and Alone in the Dark, and Postal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really seek out video game movies, so I can't really say or speak to if there's a good one. As far as I know, they're mostly bad.
I mean, you saw Doom. That was bad.
Yeah. I've also seen Rampage.
That was nothing.
But I haven't seen Resident Evil, but I hear that they're not great.
The Tomb Raider movies with Angelina Jolie, I haven't seen. The newer one with Alicia Vikander.
Oh, Alicia Vikander.
I think.
I mean, that would make sense.
It was like a generic junky movie. That's the thing with a lot of like, since video games take a lot of inspiration from cinema and all that stuff, when it comes to those sort of games that are already like sort of cinematically inspired, putting it back into a movie just usually. It's like a copy of a copy.
I feel like it's easier to make a fun little animated movie like this.
I think so too.
So now I feel like a lot more people are going to do it.
Yeah, especially since they can now see the formula of how it works and all that stuff. And I mean, PlayStation has their own studio now for making movies. They made that Uncharted movie.
Oh, right, Uncharted.
Yeah, that wasn't very good.
Yeah, we saw that.
You saw.
We saw that together.
Yeah, it wasn't very good.
No.
It was a generic adventure movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't very good.
It wasn't.
No.
The story was weird. It wasn't good. It was basic.
Yeah, wasn't.
And then they found those old ships very easily.
Yeah, well, they do that in the games too, but it just didn't have the same vigorous appeal as the games. I think it's because it's a game that you actually play.
It's interesting how games based on movies tend to do better than movies based on games.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time there was a stigma against like licensed games. Like games that came out the same day as the movie were usually frowned upon because usually they had to rush the game out for it to come out on the day that movies came out. But for a lot of games, like the Batman games and all that stuff, like those are seen as like very like well regarded games, you know, and they're licensed and all that stuff. So yeah.
Well, yeah, because they like put effort into those games to really make it similar to the source material and not just like a rush out cash grab.
While still doing its own thing.
Yeah, but you can tell when something's a cash grab, and I think that's the problem with a lot of video game movies is that they're banking off the love of the video game. And vice versa with games based on movies. Exactly. And as much as this one was probably a cash grab, it also had just enough heart to like kind of forget.
It had the heart to like tickle your like weakest sensibilities.
Yeah. So
like your most like supple nurtured by fucking product brain stuff.
The consumer in us.
Oh my god!
Really loved this movie.
This is like expert consumer brain control sort of movie.
Yeah, you are not immune to capitalism and propaganda.
You must consume Nintendo games.
Right. So all the consumers that live inside all of our brains liked this movie.
Yeah, Nintendo are experts at that.
Right. Totally. Well, I think that's a good sentiment to end off on. We're all consumers on the inside, and this really brought that part of our brain out and banked on our nostalgia.
If you like it, you like it, don't you?
Yeah. So I think what we're saying is it was okay. I gave it a 3. You also gave it a 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you want to see it, see it. I can't say I'd recommend it just because it is so middle of the road, but, you know, see it, I guess.
Listen, this movie is coming out on Netflix later this year. If you need to, like, babysit a kid.
Yeah, put it on for the fun color. It's a good background movie, probably. Put it on the background, for sure.
It's diverting.
Yeah. When you just need to have something on while you're cooking or whatever, or watching a kid, play this movie. This movie was made for... Some movies are just made to be background noise.
Yeah.
And
visual
this is that.
crack.
Right. You just need to have something, right? So...
Yeah.
Great.
Enjoy the empty calories.
Right. Yes. Kyle?
Yeah.
Thank you for talking to me.
Sure.
I hope I'm going to hold you to that. I'm definitely going to have you on in the future.
Really? I was that good? I get good boy points?
Well, you live with me, so if I ever need a guest and can't contact one, I will just grab you from the other room. So you have to be on a future episode for that. But yes, thank you for talking about this. I enjoyed having you.
Yeah.
Thank you, honeybees, for listening. You want to say bye to the honeybees?
Bye.
Bye.